Welcome to the DevReady podcast, where we're helping non-techs build great tech. Joined today by Andreas Gonzalez. He is the Innovation Portfolio Manager at Aurecon Group. We've been working with Aurecon for a number of years in a number of different projects, and met Andreas probably about, 2, 3 years ago now, Andreas, where we first connected, I think.
Yeah, it's been around that time.
Yeah, yeah, at that time, and I just thought it'd be great to have a different perspective. We talk a lot to business owners, founders, and people that are supporting the world of technology. We don't drive too much into corporate innovation and what that might mean. How does that sort of look from a management perspective? And just given your role at Oracle, I thought it'd be a great conversation to look at what does a corporate business do in the space of innovation, and how can we learn something from what Aurecon's doing in innovation to bring it to our own businesses, startups, scale ups, whatever that might be, and whoever's listening out there. So thanks for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on. Firstly, tell us a bit about you. Tell us a bit about your background and how you got into the role of Portfolio Innovation Manager at Aurecon.
Of course, and thanks for having me here, Andrew. It's always good to have a bit of a contribution to a very large space, which is innovation. My background, it's an interesting one. So I'm originally from Mexico City, and I come from an architecture and design background. My focus back in the day was very much around just traditional architecture and design, with a bit of a focus on structural engineering. Um, I think my very first experience towards innovation was around materials. I used to work on materials research back in the day, and I did a project towards the end of my university years there, where I was just really playing around with different materialities, particularly plastics, and trying to test its resilience and application to structures on the laboratory that we had back in the day. So I was just, being very simple about it, but burning plastic and see how we could use that or not towards a
Sounds like a lot of fun.
more. Yeah, look, it was
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun, but I think
Yeah.
it made me look into what other people were doing around the materials side in an international context. And eventually I found a really interesting research group in RMIT University here in Melbourne that I wanted to be part of, and decided to move. So when I came here, I started to work on robotics, fabrication, and advanced manufacturing. I very much into the prototyping side of things on really cutting edge projects. Worked on some of the world first large scale polycarbonate 3D printing projects here in Melbourne, and very interesting lineage of work
Well,
in
tell
that
us a bit about
sense.
that. That's fascinating. Yeah. So
Yeah,
large
so
scale
I
3D printing.
it was really interesting and challenging project, because the ambition was always to use these technology like robotic fabrication and 3D printing to be able to really apply them on architectural contexts. So we were very lucky at the time as a group that we had a client on university, Monash University, that was really welcoming of technology, and we managed to install our very first, I think it was a 3 meter or 2.5 meter tall wall, 3D printed on polycarbonate by a robot, which passed fire rating. So that kind of
Oh
goes
wow,
back to my
it's quite
burning
large.
plastics history. So it was really good to apply that. So I guess my
Mm.
background is from really being at the forefront of researching something that hasn't been done before, and then thinking through how to apply it in commercial context, which is quite difficult, as we know, to bridge that gap between university research and
Mm.
commercial. And then I started working on an architecture firm, and my role started to steer towards computational design. Back in the day, there were very few people that were able to, in the architecture world, that knew how to program and code and how to leverage that to design. To produce design tools that will help our designers to do things smarter and faster. I'm very, and I guess over time I was very involved in lecturing and university as well. I ran my own design studios. I became good at explaining what used to be very complex concepts, and then I grew my role into more of a leading role, helping the board members back in the day to strategize around how to grow their research portfolio. And then at around COVID times, I made a move to Aurecon and I joined to help structure the computational design program back in the day. We have Aurecon has a big computational design program, and now it's being scaled much bigger than when I started out there. And then I moved into my current role, which is innovation portfolio manager. So it's been a bit of a zigzag career in that sense, but really just following that thread of research and innovation throughout.
I think that role probably makes sense given your background experience working across multiple spaces of research, both lecturing as well as physical, maybe some computer science on the technology side. So it covers a bit of bases there. So you've got both physical hardware, a bit of software implementation or computational design. So there's plenty to learn and take from there. Coming into a role that you're in right now, what's been probably the glaring challenge that's in the space of corporate innovation? What stands out to you? Because we are working at business as usual. We've got thousands of people in an organization like Aurecon. How do you bring people together on a journey of innovation to encourage that effort within an organization like Aurecon?
Yeah, look, there's a few challenges, but I think I'd like to always start with two really big advantages that we have at Aurecon. The first one is innovation is really front and center in all of our communications. It's a big part of our strategy. It's communicated and lived really by all of our leaders. So we've got that as a big advantage because it is something that's widely spoken of and pushed forward. So that is a pretty
So
big
that it's a
advantage.
key driver, key
That is,
metric that you're
yes.
tracking. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's been fantastic to experience. The second one is the fact that it's a big engineering business. So engineers by profession, they're innovative. They're constantly problem solving and creating new solutions. So those are big advantages. I would say the second one is also a big challenge because it's really difficult at times for people to identify the fact that they're producing what could potentially be new intellectual property, and they're producing something that could be further commercialized because in their eyes they're just doing the job, which is creating something new
Ah,
and solving a problem.
clear. Mm-hmm.
So a big challenge for us in the business is to really make sure that we're identifying those innovative solutions and leveraging. So that's one of the biggest challenges is how do we capture what we already do rather than encourage new things because that just happens inherently as part of business as usual. So that's
Well,
one of the
that's
biggest
the
business
yeah
challenges.
challenges, but also positives, right? So if we're
Yeah.
always in a space where we're problem solving, then people are focused on how do we really solve a problem, then the output of that might be something innovative. Like you said, that is an advantage of being in a business that's always doing new cutting edge because you're doing cutting edge designs, you're solving railroad challenges, building infrastructure. So there are a number of the challenges that you're solving, and then innovation really stems from that. You mentioned capturing that information. Is that done through education? How do you drive people to capture innovation?
So we're lucky to have a team of people dedicated in each of our operational regions that really champion innovation and they engage with all different stakeholders to look for these opportunities. And we've got our own internal ideation platform where we use to capture some of these innovations and both innovations that took place and we can leverage further and just new ideas that people may have. So we've got a few avenues. So we really encourage people to share with us their ideas and share with us the things that they're seeing that could be innovative. I think going back to that challenge piece, one of the things that I enjoy the most about innovation, which is probably what makes it most complex, is that it's highly contextual. So what can be innovative for me may not be innovative for you, right? Like if we look at
True.
things that are happening in other industries like automotive, and we look at the way that other industries, such as my background, architecture, you could argue they're vastly different and years in difference between different types of applications of technology, for example. So
Agreed. Yeah.
it's being really important at our core for us to be able to categorize and identify the different novelty scale of the things that we're trying to pursue, because that helps us then understand the complexity and the types of either partnerships that we need to form to enable them, or how much even how much budget we need to allocate to certain things depends on the novelty of it. I think that becomes that has been something that's been driving a lot of our efforts in really just tailoring to solutions in that sense.
What are the key advantages I see in a business like yours? Is there structure to innovation? I feel like we work across small, medium, large enterprise businesses, and you get the smaller you get, you find that yes, you can be agile and nimble, but you might just be investing in things that really don't make sense to anyone because there's no structure in terms of building a business case, understanding users, understanding is there a market fit, is there really an opportunity here. That's one of the things I see as a big advantage, where you basically look at things with a fine tooth comb and assess them. Can you tell us a bit about that process and how you go about that? Because there's quite a bit of learning in that, I'd say.
Yes, and that's been a big part of my role over the last few years has been to really structure that process and define what it looks like. It's been a really big challenge for them. Some of the few reasons that I've already mentioned, but also being such a large matrix organization and having such different lines of work and service groups and disciplines. My biggest challenge has been to have something that works for all, and you've got to compromise and you've got to keep it very flexible. So our process it's really aligned with innovation management standards. We've got three main stages: ideate, incubate, scale, and we've got different steps that we take through in between. What's been really interesting is that the more that we've tried to really tighten the screws on having a very well defined process, the more that I've realized that I have to just open it up a little bit more and keep it flexible.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I've gone back to really defining critical stages of the process and defining critical artifacts and the information that we would like to capture or the evidence that we would like to see as part of a process, and keeping then the how we get to that stage, how we capture that information, fairly flexible. We do have a pretty big toolkit of canvases and digital tools are all the things that we can use to help us get to that stage gate end result and to capture the information. But I think it's been really important for us to be more clear about the criteria and the deliverables and what we expect to see out of a process, rather than what are the individual granular steps that you need to take, because that also changes. It's we have a range of innovations that are from digital products to potentially new designs that could be patented to new services or business processes. So it's really hard to
Yeah,
have
they're
the one
very
thing for all of them.
varied,
It's
aren't they?
very broad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. So you mentioned you're looking at more of a gated approach as to what you might expect to come through. Like when we go through ideation, what level might we need to get it into incubation, into scale? Are there sort of key things that you're looking at? Is it how big the market is? Is there a buying customer or someone that's willing to buy this? Or what are some key things that say, yes, this might go through the gate? Because I think that's important to know. Sometimes there's the two or three things that say, yes, let's keep pushing because we are looking to innovate in a business, in any space. We want to make sure we've got some of these things covered. What's some of the critical things you see to success of getting through these stages?
Yeah, well, being a client-centric business, of course, one of the key elements of anything that might get it through the stages would be to have a client or target a client that would be interested in this. Part of our validation approach would always include to make sure that as we test it with a client, and we test not only its functionality and whether it delivers what it should, but also the fact that the client is interested on this. So we go back to three main assessment criteria, essentially, which is desirability, feasibility, and viability. So pretty much, do our clients want it? Can we do it with our resources and skill sets? And is it something that is going to be viable for the business in terms of commercial benefits? So we've got a series of requirements for each of those things, but overarchingly, those are the three main things that we start to interrogate.
Makes sense. Yeah, those things are quite important in terms of can we get something into a customer's hands or a client's hands to visualize, see, start using, build some desirability around it? Is it viable? Can we actually deliver on it? So yeah, they're quite pivotal to it. But I think the key crux of it is there a client? Is there a market
Yeah,
need? That's
yeah,
I think anything we're
absolutely.
building, it's all about that customer, right? So you've seen many a times where people just build stuff for the sake of, oh, this is a great idea, but at the end of it, there's no real use case or someone that's going to really get value from that proposition. So really important. Client first, have a client, someone you can work with, get feedback from and iterate, because otherwise, what are we really doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, the one of it's, I don't know if I would call it a requirement, but
Yeah.
we always encourage everyone to zoom in into what is the problem that we're trying to address. And if it isn't a problem, then what is, and this is actually my preferred way of thinking through things, is what's the opportunity that we're leveraging here, or what's the opportunity that we're addressing. So
Mhm.
it's very easy to have an idea. It's difficult to tie that idea back into a value proposition and back into something that's going to be commercially viable and that's going to be adding value to our clients. So we do have people that understand, like a lot of people understand these very well, and they're very commercially savvy. But I think it's easy when you have an idea to get quite excited about it and to want to just go ahead
It
and do
is,
it.
yeah.
But I think as an innovation team, is our role to pull people back into the problem and say, okay, what is it actually that we're trying to address, and how is that going to add value to a client, and then how is that going
Mhm.
to add value to us as a business, or as a team, or as an industry even. What those factors are critical to uncover and to clarify as part of our process.
Simple 101, we need a key problem that's really people want to solve and be willing to invest into to solve. We need a big enough opportunity to explore. If it's solving it for one particular customer in a tiny little market, maybe it's not worth investing X amount to get that outcome. And then how big is that opportunity? So sometimes, yes, we might be building something for our industry, for our own internal. So there might be internal innovation, it could be outfacing, it could be a variety of different things. Along your
Yeah.
along your journey, what's some of the? There's always those standout things that we think that aren't special. Oh, that's not interesting. That's not going to work, and it just blows our mind that it actually works and that it hits the market and actually delivers results. But any experiences like that in the space of Aurecon? Because we all have. It's all about perspective, right? And yeah. So I like to explore that when we talk about innovation because it generally is a standout.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I think I might just give an example in the context of sustainability, given how big of a market it's become over the last few years. I think
Mhm.
there's been a lot of different efforts internally where probably 5 years ago we would have said like, oh, a tool like this might not kick off, and now it's become front and center. I think artificial intelligence as well. Back in the days, we had our generative AI leader. Nowadays, came into the business and started exploring a few ideas that have now become massively valuable for the business and front and center on our strategy. So I think one of the things that, as a professional services company that operates in a few markets, one of the things that we need to be mindful of is that the market changes constantly. And what may be a good idea now may not be a good idea in 3 years, and vice versa.
Sure.
I think it's really important to keep the pulse on the market and to identify what are the upcoming trends. So we've been lucky that we have a futures team that really helps with that market scanning as well and understanding some of the trends that are coming. So we're a little bit more prepared to identify where are the places that we would need to innovate to get ahead or to really make a bit of a difference in the industry and for our clients. But I have seen time and time again where an idea was a great idea 2 years ago and we really pursued it, and now it's no longer relevant, and vice versa. An idea that we had 3 years ago, now it's like, actually, let's dig that up, let's undust it and put money into it because it's going to be super relevant. It happens a lot.
Do you see that from a market changing side, or is that generally where that comes from? Market demand, market change, perceptions in the marketplace, what the trends become?
Yeah, it's a mix of
Yeah.
market demand and available skill sets, I would say, because
Okay.
there has been also times where we will have an idea, but we don't have the skill set to fully develop. And maybe a couple of years from now, there's more of a skill set in the market, and we happen to hire a few people that have that skill set, and
Got
then
it.
we can get on board with that idea. So that's
Mm-hmm.
happened. And at the same time, it's also something where because it's such a client-driven and client-centric business, we also need to be very aware of the appetite of our clients to invest in those things and to adopt innovation. So there's been times where we will have to stop certain projects because there's been a change on the client situation, and because our innovation may be very specific towards them, we just have to hit the pause button for a little bit and put it on hold, and vice versa. There's times where they're even from a client perspective, there may be changes under circumstances or maybe even new leadership on the client or something, and the appetite may be renewed, and we just have to go back and act fast to take that opportunity and really deliver something that's going to be making a difference for them.
Fascinating. How do you find, if in your mind, managing innovation across the gamut of technology, physical, pattern processing, probably R&D mixed up into this? How do you find managing that whole process with all these different variances inside that?
Oh, look, it's a mix of a super exciting position to be in because I get exposed to so many different things and so many different lines of work, and at the same time, a little bit. I would say challenging in a way because I feel like every time that I walk into a room with super senior or really experienced or really knowledgeable people in different lines of work, I always feel like I'm the one that knows the least about the subject in the room. So for me, it's always a bit of a challenge um, to really dive deep into what they're trying to do. But I think over time I've managed to I guess through experience over the years and through my background in robotics and whatnot, I feel I've got an advantage in terms of being able to understand the technical language, so I can translate
Mhm.
concepts quite easily. But it is at times a bit challenging where I walk in. I'm like, oh, can you repeat that one basic context, that one
Yeah.
basic concept that you all know that I'm not really familiar with? Um, but I think as an innovation professional and in my role, that's where I probably add the most value in terms of really just understanding at a high level how things interconnect themselves and understanding
Mhm.
that sometimes people that are working on one particular element on one discipline can leverage something that other people over there are doing in and perhaps in a different geographic location,
Mhm.
and having that overarching umbrella view of what's happening across the business, it has been super interesting and really beneficial for me to just be able to connect the dots. Most of the times, that's what my job is really coordinating things that may have synergies, and identifying those synergies where others don't look at it. So I'm privileged in having that bird's eye view type of role over the business.
It'll be a fascinating role sitting a bird's eye view, speaking to all different people across all different zones, geographies. You might have people working on same things in different spaces in different parts of the world. I'm
That
sure that
that
occurs.
happens. That
Yeah,
happens
yeah,
most of the times. I would
yeah,
say if
yeah,
there is one
yeah,
story that keeps happening time and time again, is someone has a great idea, and all we need to do about it is actually why don't you go talk to this other person on this other location that's doing something similar, and that for me is very satisfying because I'm like, you know what, someone had a great idea and it's not that the idea is not valuable, it just happens to already be in track. How can we
mm-hmm.
connect that person to add more value to what's already on track? And that just ensures that we are allocating our resources into something that needs it, but at the same time we're making people understand that what they're proposing is actually pretty good and it is good to the point that it's already in train. So how do we get them to
Yeah.
contribute? And I think that's very important for us as well to connect people to the right people and to the right initiatives as opposed to just trying to create new things all the time.
Makes sense, and that's also it helps with your validation process. If you've got multiple people working on similar things or have similar problems, that means there's probably a bit more behind the challenge that people are trying to solve, and then you're coming together as a collective, can different insights, and then give you a better catapult in terms of maybe some more customers or clients that might be engaged in this. as well as different perspectives from different zones and geographics. So I think that's a big advantage that you have as an organisation of the size.
Absolutely. And it's just that diversity of thought, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so
Mm.
important that as part of our process, we make sure that we always have diversity on the types of people and backgrounds and knowledge and experience that get to contribute to innovation initiatives because you know what it comes back to that contextual nature of innovation, right? What might be good to me might not be good to that person. What might be cool and new to me might not be the same as that other person. Same for
Yes.
clients, same for markets, same for industries. So there's such a broad mix of professionals in the business that one of our biggest strengths and one of the things that I feel so privileged to be able to do on my role is be able to call someone from all different types of seniority levels. And I've had several workshops around like, you know what, let's getting a principal, a managing principal, and a graduate and a few others into the room. And what happens is magic from a brain power perspective. It's just that diversity of thought is something that we're very rich of in the business, and it's so critical to innovation.
In terms of Aurecon itself, tell us a bit about what the philosophy is. You mentioned at the top of it that innovation was a critical component of what you do as a business. Where do you see yourselves? What's the intent? You are quite a large organisation. Where do you see the business going over the next 5, 10 years? What's the strategy look like? What's the direction you are taking this business?
It's look, it's really driven by what we see as opportunities on different markets. And as I think as a business, we do see ourselves as having all the different skill sets and knowledge to be able to get into that eminent space of really delivering something that's of difference to to our clients and to the industry. I think one of the main drivers behind innovation is what I've just spoken of now, which is we need to leverage people that have an individual curiosity and really connect those with a collective mindset and to a collective effort. I think Aurecon's really good and having that as the front and center sort of communication like communications for the business in terms of how we want to act as a collective, which is always leverage your own experience, always identify the things that you can add as value as an individual on the organization, but make sure that you act collectively and you connect with your peers and you connect with others and you share your ideas. So as a business, there's a really big push towards that collective intent piece, which is it's such a big organization. It's really at times it would be easy to feel like you will be lost in the numbers, but Aurecon's really good on really having an intent that transcends geographies and that we all kind of push in the same direction. So that's one of the things that I've really seen as a big push over the years to leverage that, which I think it's of course such a smart move as an organization that has such a great brain power.
Yeah, if you're walking in the same direction collectively, it always makes a lot more sense than everyone going in different tangents, trying to solve bigger problems all together or in different parts of the world. I think there's some huge advantage there. So innovation is really top of what you do, and it makes a lot of sense in terms of the space that you're in, and it's ever evolving. So I imagine 4 years ago to now, the business has changed quite a bit in terms of what it's doing. What is it doing with AI? Because everyone's talking about it. What are you currently doing internally? I remember you talked about AI and bits and pieces of computer vision work back in the day. What's some of the things that you're seeing that's like, wow, we're in a pretty exciting space?
Oh, look, that's been yes, innovation. It has changed so much over the years, and I guess as an innovation team where you focus on changes all the time because you've got to really adjust yourself to what are the market demands and what is the business trying to achieve, and you've got to constantly align to that. Generative AI has been playing a massive role over the last couple of years. You know very well Dave McKenzie and our team on generative AI. They are doing such incredible things. We've got now a good solid team on generative AI, and we're really looking into how do we develop solutions for our clients and test the application of the technology with our clients on their projects, and really trying to identify how to really make something that's going to make a difference with the technology rather than using it as a buzzword. So
Mhm.
the team, like the digital team, has been really amazing in driving that forward. We've got a series of prototypes internally for, we're really encouraging everyone to test the technology and to identify how they can leverage to make their roles more productive. I use it myself all the time. And,
Mm.
some of the things that took me a while to just even something as simple as getting case studies, like putting case studies together. Obviously, things like
Mm.
we've got an internal version of ChatGPT that leverages our internal knowledge.
Mhm.
That I believe we were accredited for not too long ago. So there's really talented people that are interested and excited about the technology. And I think that's been really exciting to see as well. It's the uptake of people, and there is no shortage of propositions and suggestions for where we can apply that technology. And that goes the same for different areas of innovation. So that's been amazing to see.
Yeah, the whole generative AI side has become top of conversation, but I've actually seen Aurecon implementing and doing things. I've seen a lot of people out there talking about how, but the reality is you just need to give it a go, try, and then you'll learn from there. Writing a case study, yes, that's brilliant in terms of what it can do. And I think the one thing about generative AI, it touches everyone. It's not a piece of technology that you can't see, can't visualize, and it can impact everyone in a business or across certain segments, from writing content to helping you research to maybe connecting the dots across what people are doing in different geographies and in terms of projects. And there's a lot of opportunity if we dig deep into the technology as well. So it's just fascinating
Absolutely.
what will come. Mm,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's
yeah.
it's been really good. And I think for us being able to use the technology to leverage our knowledge has been great. And
Mhm.
um, in the innovation space, I see it's so valuable just even on that diversity of thought perspective, because I use technology like ChatGPT and our internal version of it that's
Yes.
connected to domain knowledge to bounce ideas off the technology and to really interrogate it from different angles. And I even just said, before I jump into interrogating myself, sometimes I just ask the platform to give me a bit of a synopsis or to, I assigned roles to them as well. I would say like, hey, you are this client on this sector, you've wanting X, Y, and Z. How do you think this idea stacks up against your objectives? And even just looking at that perspective, and it may or may not be accurate, and it may not interpret um, what our clients' intentions are as accurately as we were hopeful. But even just having that bit of, it takes 5 minutes to do it, and it gives you a completely different perspective, and that just
Mhm.
fits into your own analysis process and really allows you to have that perspective. Whereas before, it would have taken a few phone calls to get something like that done, right? And it's not. I personally feel with generative AI, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, and you've got to be quite critical about what comes out on at the end. But I think just even prompting a different thinking of yourself is such a valuable process to go through.
I think there's a lot to that. It's just asking questions from different perspectives and then getting different thoughts that you wouldn't have considered. That's where the advantage is. Like you said, but it may not be correct, but it still opens up conversation because then maybe when you walk into a room where you don't understand the topic, you've got a bit of an understanding of, okay, here's some top level things. Here's some key things I can actually ask. Do they make sense? Maybe not, but at least it's a conversation starter. It's the blank canvas. You throw the blank canvas out and you've got a place to begin from. That's the huge advantage of Gen AI.
Absolutely, and I've done it time and time again where we come out of a workshop, we agree on certain potential path forwards, and I just bounce it over ChatGPT, and I
Yeah.
take that
Yeah.
and copy and paste it back into a group chat. It's like, hey, this is what came out of ChatGPT. Like, what do we all think about this? Is it relevant? And I think we've gone through this process before, Andrew, where
Yeah.
using DevReady, even where you have that interrogation of what good looks like happen earlier on the innovation process, because you just have such speed of information processing nowadays.
On that, obviously you've tested our DevReady AI Alpha product. Tell us a bit about that and what the hell that supported you in testing a couple of projects. It's all about delivering digital product. But what did that do internally?
It was really fast and impressive just to see how quick we got to a level of detail that perhaps in earlier, let's say in the earlier years, it was really difficult to get to. I think what's done for our process has been able to just reiterating what I said before, just really interrogating things much faster and being a little bit more critical about it. Um, Being able to use the platform to just iterate is something that we haven't been able to do on the past. So having that has been great, and I mean it's been fantastic to see and the journey that you guys have been through in DevReady and how mature it's come from the very early stages as well. Where I remember we had a chat and you were just walking us through the platform versus the stage that it's at now. It's been really impressive to see.
Thank you. It's ever evolving and always learning. So any feedback's good because it's not perfect. We're all in a playground right now in this space, and there's so many use cases and opportunities. And I feel like any business really, if you're not engaging with Gen AI, you really need to have a look and start looking at processes and what are some of your big processes end to end. There's a lot of handover of information. There's a lot of complexity of information and thinking. That's where I see huge value in Gen AI. That's where DevReady AI came from. It's all about that really in terms of our business.
And it's iterative, absolutely. Like
Yeah,
it's, as you say, it's not perfect. I would say it's never going to be, and it's the same
no,
as
never.
what I
Nothing's
keep saying.
perfect, really.
Every
Yeah,
time I
yeah,
adjust even our
yeah,
own
yeah,
innovation process, I
yeah,
always add a
yeah,
disclaimer saying it may change in the next 6 months because we'll do
yeah.
something new,
Yes.
and you'll
Yeah.
have to iterate and adjust, right? And I think
Mhm.
with something like generative AI, you just have to take one step and give it a go, and slowly but surely just understand the applicability and slowly but surely grow the different use cases that you have for it. And that was my own personal journey of it. I started on generative AI probably 5 years ago. So when it was still an API that
Infancy.
came out from
Yeah.
NVIDIA and I was doing things in Python, that was my first dabble at it. And what came out on the other end was horrific, but super interesting from a graphical perspective. I was, we kind of run design studios based on that. There's really smart people that continue that lineage of work on RMIT at the moment. So back in the day, I thought this is great. And I remember just diving into it and thinking it's got so much applicability, but I probably can't just leverage as it is. And now I see people such as Fuchs, our creative technology leader, generative AI creative leader, who's just creating the most outstanding images on such a speed. And I
I've
say,
seen some of
wow,
those on
look,
socials. Yeah, the
they
Aurecon
are
logos, and
incredible.
yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah,
They're really
he's done
yeah.
such a great work, and I think, well, if I think back to when I started doing things on Python with it like a few years ago, versus what he can do now, I cannot do what he does. Like it's incredible. It's just being it's come so long. It's what I realized, and in such a short period of time. And I think anyone that jumps into it's going to be highly valuable to any business.
Mhm. Agree. Yeah, there's a lot of value you can bring by learning the technology, understanding it, what it can deliver, building use cases around it. That only comes from testing and iterating. It's really an agile market, so you've got to be agile with it. Understand that you might test something, it may not work, but that's okay. You'll learn something and look at other areas it can evolve into. I guarantee that every business can find an area they can use generative AI in and get substantial improvement on quality and speed. So that's what you get from it. So yeah, Andres, been a pleasure. Thank you for opening the hood a little bit in terms of what your role looks like in terms of Aurecon and sharing a little bit about how you approach innovation. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the DevReady podcast. And if anyone wants to check out anything about Aurecon, there is it aurecongroup.com.au or am I incorrect?
Aurecon.com. Yeah.
Oh, just
Aurecon.
Aurecon.com. Yeah, Aurecon.com. But yeah, go check them out. They're a quite innovative organisation. We've been working with them for a number of years, and it's a pleasure having you on. And thank you for joining us today.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me, Andrew. It's been a pleasure. And it is aurecongroup.com. I'm completely off at the
We
moment.
both got it wrong. I had a feeling there was a group in there.
Yeah.
So aurecongroup.com.au. There you go. we made it work. Thanks,
Perfect.
Andres.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a lovely day.
You too.